Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
As if the McCrispy couldn't get any better, Bacon and Ranch just entered the chat. The Bacon Ranch McCrispy, available at participating McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Welcome to the family here on Purple Mafia. I am your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Wygen. Purple Mafia is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podman, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, Double Twist, and Amazon Music. Thank you always for downloading and listening to this show. Always great to have you on board. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Minnesota Viking fans in general didn't have a Merry Christmas in terms of Minnesota Vikings and the way things turned out, unfortunately. It's not a laughing matter. It's just kind of like a nervous chuckle, I guess you could say. But again, I hope you generally had a Merry Christmas. Hope you enjoyed the season and you understand the reason for the season and all that. I'm recording the first segment on Saturday right now, a little bit before the Bucks and the Lions kick off. So, unfortunately, not going to be releasing the show, as you probably noticed. Obviously, you'll notice the show isn't released until Sunday night. I'm going to kind of keep that tradition because segment number 2 will be basically worthless other than previewing a Detroit game. And it's like, yay, we're going to preview a Detroit game that doesn't mean a whole lot. It's just a season wrap-up, basically, because the Minnesota Vikings have been eliminated. We are 6-9 in a 52-33 loss to the hated, dirty, evil, cheating New Orleans Saints. It is what it is. It is what it is. Vikings defense is just kind of like non-existent. We can chalk it up to guys being out, chalk it up to this, chalk it up to that. I also think it's becoming more and more of like what the Twins were in 2016. Total system failure. That's just what it feels like right now. Total system failure. Minnesota Twins. It's just like, what the hell can you do? I'm not seeing anything positive right now. At least defensively. Offensively, there's a lot to be excited about. We're excited about the young cornerbacks, but none of them really look particularly good. The run defense was historically bad, and it's been bad all year. Obviously, the defensive tackles are like literally, according to Pro Football Focus, pretty much the worst defensive tackles in the NFL. So, unbelievable rating there when it comes to starting defensive tackles for the Vikings. Dalvin Cook didn't get the ball as much as he might have liked, but at the same time, I think a lot of us in town, as much as we love Dalvin Cook, I think we're getting sick and tired of the run focus of this offense and this scheme, and I think it's one of those things that probably should be put out to pasture at the end of the day. I don't even want to talk about this, what I'm about to say. I don't even want to talk about it because I don't even like the guy. He looks like an asshole. I think he's real cocky. I don't like those stupid things coming out of his nose, but Alvin Kamara, yes, he had 6 touchdowns in today's game. You heard me right. Yeah, I don't even like the guy. You know, he's a cocky son of a you-know-what. He hates us with a passion for whatever reason, obviously because of the Minneapolis Miracle and stuff. I don't like the guy at all. He tied Ernie Nevers, 1929, for the most rushing touchdowns in a game. This, according to The Athletic. Dub Jones in 1959 and Gil Sayers 1965 are the only others with 6 total touchdowns in a game since at least 1950. So, man, we're talking back to the right before the Great Depression in 1929, or maybe right about after it happened, that Black Monday deal. I don't know, man. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. We gave up 6 touchdowns to Alvin Kamara. And again, I've already made my opinion. I'm not a fan of the guy. I'm a fan of his game. I do not, those piercings drive me nuts. I can't stand that stuff. It's a young generation thing. I have, please don't be offended by what I'm saying. It's a young generation thing, and I don't know why the young generation likes that kind of thing. They think it's so cool and it's party time and all that. It's not for me. Maybe I just don't understand and I'm ignorant and I'm belong I belong locked up somewhere. I don't care. Maybe people think that about Mike Zimmer with this overly old school approach. I think is where we're heading. I like old school things. I like old school Christmas. I like old school video games, even old school cars. This and that. But unfortunately, in the NFL, I like old school football. I like old school players, old school basketball, old school baseball. Heck, the Game 7 of the 1975 World Series is flashing in the background right now because the Bucks and the Detroit Lions haven't started. But when it comes to NFL offense and NFL approach, I don't know. I think you're forced to keep up with the times. Otherwise, you end up losing 52-33 to the New Orleans Saints, a team that's not that good. They're not that good. They're not a 52-point talent at this point. Drew Brees' arm is shot. He's beat up. Alvin Kamara, just like a week ago, didn't do anything. Like off and on, he's just okay. He is a cocky MFer. I think I've said that enough already. And obviously, most pro athletes are. They got this big ego because they can do things other people can't, and they're always talking down to the other to the opposition every time they do something right. I don't like Lattimore either. I mean, he is just an ass. I think he's way too much. Vikings receivers Thielen and Jefferson had to deal with him during the day, and they did well, but they didn't do spectacular. Irv Smith got in the end zone twice, which is really nice. Yeah, I mean, Lattimore's an ass. Obviously he's a talented guy, but he's too much. And, of course, obviously Thielen occasionally can be an ass too, I suppose, and Justin Jefferson was just kind of giving Lattimore like, okay, man, like a thumbs up, basically, after all the bleep talking. So, I don't know. I think we've all had enough of the New Orleans Saints. I do not like this team. I don't like the coach. Drew Brees lost me ever since 2009 with his attitude. Lattimore, I can't stand him anymore. Obviously, Kamara, I never liked the guy. I like his talent, but I don't like him. I don't like his attitude. But I guess that's sports. You're going to always dislike players you play against numerous times, and players that try to, they talk a lot of talk, and I don't like all that stuff. That's just the way I see the world, I guess, this day and age. I mean, basketball's filled with it. I mean, heck, hockey players talk a lot, too. So it's obviously not a cultural this or lack of culture that or this or that. It's nothing to do with that. I don't like guys that talk in general. And Thielen's one of them. I don't like the way he kind of goes on sometimes, but he's not as dislikable as some of these other guys, I'll say, at times. Obviously, certain players bring it on themselves. I mean, Thielen's had a hell of a year, though. Despite, missing time and having a couple of off days. He does have 14 touchdowns on the season, which is pretty impressive. Cook continues to amaze in his total touchdowns. He averaged 5 yards a carry. But, of course, playing from behind, you can't run as much as Mike Zimmer would like, I'm sure. Man, unbelievable numbers on the year. Unbelievable numbers on the season for Dalvin Cook. 16 touchdowns on the season, 1,557 yards. Obviously, amazing numbers. The amount of carries is ridiculous, but he is averaging almost 5 yards a carry. It's just absolutely crazy during the course of the season, which, again, that's insane. He is averaging 5 yards a carry on the year. That's crazy. That's his career number, 4.8. 33 total touchdowns, 29 of them in the last 2 years. And, heck, he even had a couple touchdowns in the postseason last year. Don't forget. But, obviously numbers not as good, per se, particularly that San Francisco game. Great defense, obviously, for Frisco, at least last season. I don't know about poor Frisco this year. Yep, they're out as well. We're out, they're out, Detroit's out. I think Chicago's still hanging around, right? Hanging around, they should be. Yep, so they're still in the hunt, just barely. Yep. Los Angeles Rams would be wild card at the moment, and of course they haven't played a game since last week. 9-5, Tampa Bay 9-5, Arizona 8-6. Those are your wild card clubs. Green Bay is the top seed in the NFC. God, New Orleans has now tied them with 11 wins, but they have 4 losses. So if the Packers win again, they're just one game away from making it official. 11-3 for them. 10-4 Seattle Seahawks would be the third division leader, and the 6-8 Washington Redskins. Okay, I just call them the Redskins. Washington football team, Washington Gophers. Okay, the Washington football team is 6-8, and I think they're going to win the division. Giants suck. Eagles are crazy, even though their quarterback looks pretty good, because it isn't Carson Wentz, it's Jalen Hurts. So, there you go. Worst run defense ever. Worst run defense ever. There is no resistance. It's kind of like my brakes right now. The pressure is really low on my brakes right now. It's kind of scary. Yeah, because it's leaking brake fluid. That's actually true. It's kind of scary. And yeah, and it just happens to be Christmas weekend. Isn't that great? So just great timing for that. But ha ha ho 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 ho, right? Isn't that great? It's so funny. Only 227 yards given up between Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, who I like a lot more. Taysom Hill also got in the end zone. The Vikings. Yep, Taysom Hill in one of those Taysom Hill plays where it's a draw play, whatever. Seven rushing touchdowns given up by the Vikings. It's just, it's amazing stuff. Seven rushing touchdowns. It's just, yeah, that's great. Isn't that wonderful? It's the best thing I've ever seen. I feel so good right now. It's just, it's most, yeah. Oh, thanks, Joey, for bringing the positivity. I can imagine. I dare somebody to come to me and talk to me like that, like on those Wolves pages. Gosh, not sensitive, are we? Jeez. Thanks for contributing to the page. Oh, shut the, fill in the blanks. I can't stand whiny little snowflakes when it comes to sports. It is the most annoying thing ever. You can criticize a team. When they play like this, you can criticize them. Go ahead and say you're piling on. Go ahead and say it. Just say it again and say it again. I don't give a rat's ass, at this point, if you don't like me, if you don't like my show, because I think giving up 583 total yards is ridiculous. It's insane. It's ridiculous, man. Net yards rushing 264, and yes, 7 touchdowns. Seven. Way to protect the goal line, guys. Good job, eh? I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. And again, against a guy who just wants to constantly remind you how spectacular he is, and Alvin Kamara. Every bleeping time he does anything, he thinks he's the king of the world. I don't like him. I don't like a lot of players that act like that. I don't like when our players act like that. And Drew Brees threw 2 interceptions in the game as well. He wasn't even good. But the Vikings defense offered no resistance. It offered no resistance in the game. What more can you say? No resistance. Worst run defense ever. Can I just keep saying that? 264 yards and 7 touchdowns. Oh, and Brew Brees also had 311 yards and 2 interceptions. That's a great, at least he got this yardage, I guess, but no touchdown passes, but who cares? How many more touchdowns can they score in a game? I mean, you already got 7 rushing touchdowns. Isn't that enough? Yeah, it's enough. It's enough. It's good. It's good. It's enough. Yeah, it's enough. Still got 311 yards passing to add to it. I mean, almost 600 yards given up. What is this, Gopher football or something? You know how Gopher football defense sometimes is really great, and you give up, like, record yardage to, like, teams that aren't even that good? Yeah. I mean, this Saints team isn't going to go anywhere. This Saints team's not going anywhere. Go ahead and brag, Saints fans, all you want. I'm going to come back and say that. You played a Viking team that can't stop anybody. And the entire show, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were like, this defense is just not good right now. They're just not. And Mike Zimmer must be just suffering. I'm sure he is. But the fans are suffering more than Mike Zimmer at this stage. Even though Zimmer, he's got his heart and soul in it and blah, blah, blah. And he works 18 hours a day. And, they care more than anybody else because this is their life and blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, if this is your life and you care more than anything else and this is the best we can do, I don't know. I don't have a ton of sympathy necessarily. Obviously, there were injuries. Obviously, there's no Michael Pierce. That does a ton of problems. That gives you a ton of problems. There's no Danielle Hunter the entire damn season. You traded away Ngakoue, which is your own fault. But I guess you kind of got the trade back and you got the draft pick back, but moved down a bit. And what's the other thing you did? I don't even remember anymore. That's where we're at right now. I mean, Danielle Hunter, Ngakoue. And, of course, the point of Ngakoue is what I was actually trying to say, not other thing we did. The other reasoning for not keeping Ngakoue, I suppose, obviously, is the cap situation. And you're not going to be able to bring him back anyway. He's going to want a pretty good paycheck, and he's not going to come back. Danielle Hunter might want some type of a, maximum type of deal, so to speak, like a top 5 defensive end in football deal, and I understand if he wants that. But when you combine the 2 words neck and injury in the same sentence, it doesn't sound good, especially when it's a season-ending neck injury type of situation like it was with Danielle Hunter. I don't know what else to say. I mean, this is just more and more reason why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I've said this multiple times on the show during the course of the season, and why I was already kind of like, I could just feel my esophagus shrinking when the Vikings signed Kirk Cousins in the first place to $30 million, because I never really, It's like I could never get excited about it. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess he's an upgrade. Yeah, he's an upgrade, but how much of an upgrade? He gets nice numbers, but he never won jack. He never won jack. He never was really that spectacular. Just moments here and there. He's got a nice arm. He gets the yardage. He gets stats. He's a nice stat guy, but something was missing from Kirk Cousins forever. $30 million, and then you do it again. Again, you're putting all your eggs in one basket when you do stuff like this. You wish you could cut it in half, like $15 million. $15 million is a lot of money, man. $18 million is a lot of money. It's even more money, yeah. But it's a lot of money. Why isn't $18 million enough for a starting quarterback in the NFL? Why isn't it enough? The Chiefs, it's going to come back on the Chiefs as well. You know it is, right? Obviously, the contract with Patrick Mahomes, and he's the best quarterback in the league, and blah, blah, blah. It's a big difference from Kirk Cousins, But at the same time, it's going to come back because all of a sudden, certain guys aren't going to be there that were there before because they want a raise, and the Chiefs can't give them a raise because they can't get in the cap. That's the way the game's played, and the Minnesota Vikings history is what it is. We spend money on players that, maybe we shouldn't spend as much money on. It just always seems to magically happen that way. We missed out on the guys that we could have had for the same amount or in the years past. And that's why guys like Judd Zolgad and other people that called into that Score North event line on Purple Daily, we're talking about how it's just a cycle that's never going to end, it feels like. It's never going to end. We get a little bit better, and then we go downhill. We don't accomplish anything, and we go downhill. Yeah, yay, we got to the NFC title game and got smoked. Or we get to the NFC title game and we're winning the whole time, and we don't win because something catastrophic happens. Gary Anderson misses the field goal, and then Atlanta ties the game, and we can't complete a flipping pass to Randy Moss, and the Falcons get close enough to field goal range, and Morton Anderson buries us. Vikings are winning the game against the Saints the entire time, basically. Okay, we're behind on occasion, but we were outplaying them in a lot of ways. But then it was just fumble after fumble after fumble, including one at the goal line. Yeah, shut up, Kamara. I can see it right now. Get the out of here. I'm so sick of looking at him. Okay, next. God, we get it, dude. I know, I don't like the Saints, okay? Sorry if I sound like a complete ass right now, but I hate this team. I hate the Vikings, too, sometimes when they, get your hopes up and then do this and that. Now, this year, there wasn't a whole lot of hopes. I'm going to X this thing out. I'm tired of watching those highlights. Get out. God, finally, it's over. Okay. They get your hopes up. And then, obviously, what the Vikings did, the fumble at the goal line by Adrian Peterson. Then we're crossing the 50. Despite all the fumbling, we're still going to get it because we're crossing the 50 with Brett Favre and Ryan Longwell, as your guys that could win the game for you. And then, we could do a walk-off and say, adios, Saints. We're going to play the Colts and win the Super Bowl this year. Favre does they cross the body, and the Vikings never get the ball back again, ever. And, they changed the rule the next year. That really accomplished a lot for us. Gee, that really helped us a lot. And that's just kind of Vikings history. Get back to the NFC Championship game 10 bleeping years later. Okay, 8 years later. It was we were going a little bit faster, right? And then get drubbed by the Philadelphia Eagles after a nice opening drive, and that a-hole Chris Long knocks the ball away. I don't like him either, by the way. I just don't like him. Knocks the ball away from God, I hated that play. It drove me absolutely nuts. Just drove me insane. So frustrating. I knocked the ball away from Keenum that led to the pick six, and then everything went exactly where after that. The Vikings didn't do jack after that, and everything went wrong. It's just, I don't know. Kirk Cousins doesn't feel like the guy that's going to get you over the hump. Mike Zimmer doesn't feel like the guy that's going to get you over the hump. Spielman occasionally makes you really excited about the draft and occasionally frustrates the hell out of you. He'll get you Justin Jefferson. He'll get you Adrian Peterson. He'll get you Dalvin Cook. He'll get you Brian O'Neill. He'll get you Ezra Cleveland. But he'll also get you Matt Khalil. He'll get you Christian Ponder. He'll get you, Daniel Carlson, who ended up being a good kicker, but then your stupid coach flipped out on him and kicked him out. And obviously all of us fans were mad and stuff, and you're emotional, and you're like, cut him, get him out of here. And then, what did that really accomplish? Nothing. Now, Kai Forbath was a nice little upgrade for a minute there. But, no, that's a different year. That was Blair Walsh. When we cut Blair Walsh, Kai Forbath actually was a nice upgrade. Should have just stuck with him instead of going with Carlson in the first place. Just stick with Forbath for a little while and hope for the best. And Bailey actually was a decent upgrade, but of all coaches, of course, it's going to happen to Bailey under Mike Zimmer because every kicker goes crazy and loses their mind under Mike Zimmer for whatever reason. There's just a tenseness in the room, in that locker room I sense with Mike Zimmer there that makes players nervous and they make mistakes. Now, Britton Colquitt had probably about as good a game as you're going to get out of your punter. 4 punts. We did end up punting the ball 4 times because of some crappy 3-and-outs when we needed some type of offensive production. That's why we only got 33 points, right? Only. You'd think 33 is actually good enough to win a game. But, here's the other stat you'll look at in a second. But after I finish up Colquitt, a couple of them in the 20 and along a 55. Great game for Colquitt. And Dan Bailey missed yet another extra point. He made 3 out of 4. That's great. The Saints didn't punt once.
Oh, my God!
That pretty much says it all, doesn't it? The Saints didn't punt once. The Saints didn't punt once. Did you hear that? You hear this? The Saints didn't punt once in the whole game. 0 punts. Yeah, because anytime the Saints needed yardage, they got it. I mean, that's all there is to say. They got it one way or another. You went punt once. Yeah. That's great. That's just great. Yeah, thanks, guys. That's great. But, hey, we got hope, right? I don't know. Not really. Anthony Harris is dropping off the face of the earth. And it's a crying shame because he had a great year last year. And this was kind of a prove-it franchise tag type of year, prove a year where he could get some kind of contract somewhere. If it's not with us, he'll get money somewhere. I don't know. It looks like a backup safety to me now. He looks like a backup. Jaleel Johnson's a non-factor. Odenigbo's a non-factor. Nickerson actually had a pretty good game. Hardy Nickerson with an interception. And even got 5 tackles in the game. Alfa had a couple moments. But generally speaking, yeah, Chris Jones, just the same old thing. He actually had a good play or two here and there, but generally speaking, he was pretty lousy. The Vikings tackle leader was Blake Lynch. Good job, Blake Lynch. Good job. Happy for him. Harrison Handhead actually had a couple of decent moments as well. A couple of rookies stepping up. Gladney and Dantzler did not have their best day. Gladney was tested often by Breeze. Dantzler only with 1 tackle in the game, which, again, he was not tested nearly as much because he's becoming a respected cornerback. He's actually, in a lot of ways, succeeded Gladney at the moment as the best cornerback on the Vikings. So good for him. Chris Jones sure as hell isn't that guy. He's a Band-Aid at best, and, I don't know about him, obviously. Eric Wilson, adequate. He had a couple of pass deflections, which was nice. Jamar Stephan and Jaleel Johnson are just not good. They're the worst defensive tackles pretty much in the league right now when it comes to starting. The least effective. I mean, their ratings are really poor. Vikings, of course, had 0 sacks. And again, that's another reason why there was no punting at all by Tampa. Our buddy Morstead over there didn't even have to work. He didn't have to work. He just stretched. Maybe a little bit here and there. He'd stretch a little bit, do his little, do his little motions and stuff, and that's it. That's all he did. Morstead, man. Good guy. Didn't have to do a damn thing. Just, oh, wow, nice job, guys. Clap, 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 clap. Go Saints. Who that? Who? Oh, God, don't even say it. Don't even say it. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the end of the football season, the last couple of weeks when you got 3 Saturday games. I like it. Tampa Bay at Detroit, San Francisco at Zona. Arizona's trying to clinch a playoff berth here. San Francisco, that's at 3:30. The noon game here it's just a couple minutes away now. Tampa, Detroit, Miami, and Las Vegas. Vegas trying to stay alive in Miami, cementing themselves as a playoff team. Good job, Dolphins. They're just a wild card right now, which is crazy. It shows you how much better the AFC is. Cleveland at 10-4 is a wild card. Indianapolis 10-4 is a wild card. Miami's 9-5, wild card. Baltimore 9-5 in the hunt. Yeah, not wild card, in the hunt. Isn't that crazy? Division leaders KC, yeah, woohoo. 13-1. Buffalo Bills 11-3, number 2 seed because Pittsburgh lost again to the they lost to the Jets. Yeah, they're 11-3. They lost again. Yeah, that's kind of funny. And Tennessee's also 10-4. Good job, Tennessee. They're competing with Indianapolis here in the last couple of weeks. Good job. Cool little division there. See what happens. Tennessee. Jets in Cleveland. That should get the Cleveland Browns to 11-4, hopefully for their sake. Chiefs play freaking Atlanta. These are Sunday nooners, 13-1. Boy, they are going to be 15-1, aren't they? And they'll lose in the division round. Watch. That'd be hilarious. It might happen. What more is there to say about this game? I don't know. Nice to see some guys play well on the offensive side of the ball, and a couple of little moments defensively that made individual players feel good for a couple seconds. But 7 rushing touchdowns. That's all you can say. Almost 300 yards. 7 rushing touchdowns. I don't know, man. I don't know. So much for the red zone defense. We can't even stop the run. Fran Tarkington Award for this show. It almost should be disqualified. It almost should. I mean, Cousins' numbers, statistically, I guess it's Cousins. Statistically, 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards, quarterback rating of 110. He fumbled, but he didn't lose the fumble. It was recovered. So, again, that's where Cousins always drives us crazy because it's literally every game. He fumbles the ball one way or another. Somebody either we get the ball back on occasion and other times the other team recovers. It's every freaking game. The guy can't sense pressure, and he gets strip sacked one way or another, and it's irritating to watch. That's why you have a hard time giving him a Tarkington Memorial, a Tarkington Award. Because, who else am I going to give it to? Thielen, 97 yards and a touchdown. Maybe him, I guess. He caught almost everything. Jefferson was solid, but the frustration kind of came in there as well. It ain't going to be Bailey. Maybe Britton Colquitt. Britton Colquitt had a great game punting, but didn't matter. He still got 50 points. Harrison Smith didn't have a perfect game. Nobody defensively. Oh, I guess it's Cousins. Merry Christmas, Kirk. Merry Christmas, Kirk. I guess you got another Fran Tarkington Award because, he put up good numbers. It was fun. It's just, again, the typical Kirk Cousins bull crap. But it's not all his fault either at the same time. Not everything is his fault. The O-line protection has gone down the you-know-what. And the play calling sucks most of the time. The offense is so talented. They're getting yardage and they're putting up numbers despite the fact the offense is Stone Age level. This team needs a makeover, man. Makeover, overhaul. Yeah. And the coaching staff, I think they have to, man. It's a game like this. I think they have to, but they probably won't. I think they have to. And you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, make a change? Yes. That's what I'm talking about. Kirk Cousins, Fran Tarkington Award. The Christian Conner Memorial, it's Anthony Harris with a bullet. He sucks. Anthony Harris sucks. He's probably the biggest disappointment of the year, isn't he? When you really put it all together, other than the injuries, Daniil Hunter not being able to suit up. No Michael Pierce the whole bleeping year because of his asthma and he doesn't want to risk it with this, the same thing everybody's been talking about since, January last year pretty much. Oh, the defensive line sucks. They suck. Should it go to Anthony Harris? Because, he can't even tackle. He got 8 tackles in the game. But it's like, how many yards were given up by the time he got the tackle? And, Shamar Steffens and Neil Johnson, the same thing. The guys are just running right through him, right up the middle. It's like, bring it on, purple people, bowling pins. Bring it on, purple bowling pins. That's about what they are right now in the middle. That's what they are. Shamar Steffens and Neil Johnson are bowling pins, man. Anthony Harris, I don't know what he is. He's not good. That's what he is. Chris Jones is not good. Hardy Nickerson he was probably one of the nice surprises yesterday. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Yeah, it's going to go to Anthony Harris, though. Could easily go to Johnson and Stephen just for not being good. They stink. And I thought they were going to be better. I really did. With that said, we'll take a break, and we'll get back for segment number 2 to look around the league and preview our season finale with the Detroit Lions and Darrell Bevell. And we are back here on Purple Mafia segment Number 2, we're going to look around the league. And, of course, our our opponent next week, the Detroit Lions, to wrap up the season, will either finish 7-9 or 6-10. Isn't that great? 7-9 or 6-10. So it's a losing season for the Minnesota Vikings. First losing season under Mike Zimmer since, well, his rookie year in 2014 when he was like a, 58-year-old rookie in 2015. We'll look at some of the finishes over the years. But, no, 2014. I hope I didn't say 15. He was a rookie in 2014. 7-9 finish. Has not had a losing season with Minnesota. Obviously, the last significant losing season was Leslie Frazier 5-10-1 in 2013 with the tie against Flynn and the Packers in Lambeau Field. It was a very, very cold day outside, but beautiful in November. Beautiful day out there. So we'll kind of look at the finishes over the years and such. We'll probably even do that next week. But I suppose next week we'll look more at the wild card postseason and everything and all that, the matchups and predictions and who's going to win the Super Bowl. And we'll keep up with the playoffs like we always do. But for now, we're just kind of, going through the motions, wrapping things up. There's no playoff hopes going into next week. Minnesota versus Detroit. Let's look around the league for now. Flashing in the background, of course, as per tradition, is Sunday night football. Packers versus Titans both have playoff implications where the Green Bay Packers are getting closer and closer to a number 1 seed in the NFC. It is not wrapped up in any way. They win, though. They'll be in good shape and everything, most likely. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if Green Bay actually wins the NFC this year. But even if they do, I don't think they're going to beat the Chiefs or whoever else wins the AFC. I don't think they'd beat the Bills or anything like that. But that's an indicator of where things could be headed with my mindset. I know some of you might be miffed, like, why didn't he just release the show Saturday or even Friday or something like that? Well, Friday was Christmas Day. I wanted to get going on it, but of course things just got busy, and you get tired and, you eat too much and you're just not in the mood to do a show. And you finally get home at almost 11 o'clock and it's not like I'd been drinking or anything, just worn out, tired, don't really feel like doing a show, and kind of stuffed and all that. And then Saturday, well, I recorded the first segment. That was, of course, yesterday. And then it's like, you know what? The second segment would just be about Detroit, and that would be it. I wouldn't even be able to do the Saturday games. So it would feel empty and kind of weird and stuff. I know, again, I know that Drew Bunting was kind of miffed, like, okay, on the Facebook page when I announced that. Yeah, it's because I like to have more of a complete show, especially as we get closer and closer to the postseason now. I mean, once you have Saturday night games, Saturday afternoon games and all that, Saturday night games, that's when you're getting into the serious part of the season here. Unfortunately, teams like us are out already, and the playoff picture will start to take more and more shape. So, of course, Packers-Titans flashing in the background, just kind of getting started, snowing there like it snowed here today. Beautiful, beautiful snow today. Not as scary and nightmarish as it was on the 23rd. For a lot of you out there, because when it rains before it snows, it's not good. What was it, almost like a 45-degree temperature difference in a few hours? That's pretty crazy stuff. And you go from like 45 to 0, or even less than that. It was about a 50-degree difference to like 5 below, something like that. Yeah, me and my brother and niece and nephews were out on frozen Medicine Lake with water on top of it because it had rained. That's how warm it was. So, yeah. Okay, let's keep moving. Sorry for babbling there. Just kind of explaining the situation leading into this segment and as to why this show is being released Sunday night instead of like Saturday or even Friday. So again, apologize, but I don't know. I guess it's a standard show that way. I just think it's better. Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Indianapolis Colts, so they finally win a game again after losing to the Jets and the Bengals. And what the hell? What the hell happened? They lost to the Jets, the Bengals, and yeesh. It's pretty embarrassing stuff. Well, they're 12-3 on the season, so they're still hanging around. They're not going to win the AFC though or anything. When in terms of they're not going to have the number 1 record in the AFC. That's over. I mean, the Chiefs have it in the bag, 28-24. Indianapolis still going to be fighting for a wild card berth at this point. 10-5 though, still a very strong season. Very good game between these two teams. Roethlisberger kind of getting things in order again. I don't think the Steelers are going to get real far, but maybe they will. I guess I was kind of doubting them most of the season, so maybe I'm just full of crap. Great game by Roethlisberger, though. 342 yards, 3 touchdowns, 110 quarterback rating. Solid performance. Jacoby Brissett ran the ball on a play. That's cute and everything. for Indianapolis. Philip Rivers just had one of those kind of games where it just wasn't his day. He got beat up. He got sacked 5 times in the game, was hurried throughout the day. That Pittsburgh defense was looking more like Pittsburgh again. Juju Smith-Schuster had 96 yards on 9 catches, kind of West Coast style out there with a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, 75 yards and a touchdown. And Chase Claypool, everybody's favorite guy, with only 54 yards, but still solid. You're going against one of the better defenses in the league with Indianapolis, don't forget. But Pittsburgh, to be able to put up the amount of yards they did in today's game, quite impressive, quite a solid performance. And, of course, again, getting the 5 sacks on old man Philip Rivers. It was one old quarterback versus another. T.J. Watt with a couple of sacks on Philip Rivers to lead the way in terms of the pass rush with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Xavier Rhodes, again, he had a pass deflection. He's had a decent year with the Colts, honestly. Sometimes that changes scenery, this and that. You don't feel the different. It's a different kind of pressure. There's always going to be pressure. You got to perform in this and that. But maybe he just feels happier where he is right now in Indianapolis, and good for him. And it's going to probably be in the playoffs, I guess. We'll see how things shape up at the moment. Looks like right now they're on the outside looking in, but it's kind of at Cleveland today too. And well, Cleveland today. What is going on with something? I'll get to that later. And Baltimore's back in the mix. The Miami Dolphins are the top wildcard team because they won yesterday. Good for them. Talk about that momentarily. Next week's opponent was absolutely shellacked by Tampa Bay, and we'll talk about that at the end here. It's not a huge game preview. We'll just talk a little bit about it. I mean, whatever. A couple of red teams in the NFC West duking it out Saturday afternoon. Not bad, eh? Not bad. San Francisco versus Arizona. Yeah, things are a little bit more in order now. I apologize. So things are a little more chronologically in order, except for Detroit-Tampa. That was actually the very first game on Christmas Day. That's kind of crazy. Not Christmas Day, but Saturday after Christmas. Felt like Christmas, didn't it? The Vikings were the Christmas Day game. Pleasant stuff. C.J. Beathard, much better than what Mullins had been doing for San Francisco. Really good game for C.J. Beathard. Not bad. 3 touchdowns, very, very efficient. Didn't get for a whole lot of yards, but was very good. Jeff Wilson Jr. stole the show for San Francisco, just running all over the Arizona Cardinals, and it's going to cost you 183 yards. I think we know something about that. They didn't give up 6 touchdowns rushing. They gave up 0 touchdowns rushing, did Arizona, but still 183 yards to one guy, somebody named Jeff Wilson Jr., not Jerick McKinnon, who only got 4 little yards, just 4 measly, cute little yards. And we're happy for him, I guess. Kyler Murray, he has really dropped off during the course of the season, showing the athleticism and all that with a 75-yard scamper overall. Not one scamper, but 75 yards overall. 30 yards was his long for the day. But just not on target, just kind of off. The whole game was Kyler Murray. That San Francisco defense looked like the team that messed us up pretty good and beat the hell out of the Packers in the NFC title game last year. It's a crying shame seeing San Francisco just kind of suck this year. They're going to finish 7-9 or 6-10, just like us. They're just like us right now. In Arizona, dropping all the way down to 8-7. They were 6-3 at one point, and then they dropped all the way to 6-6, got to 8-6. Now they're 8-7. It's just, I don't know. Sorry, Arizona. I don't know. You got to win games like this. I know it's a division rival, and you were at home, and I don't know. Games like this are going to cost you. The Chicago Bits, looking more and more playoff bound at the moment. Good for them. Good for Chicago. Of course, they started 5-1, so 8-7 ain't real pretty after a 5-1 start. But I guess they'll kind of take it. I mean, they'll take anything they can get right now in Chicago. Good for Trubisky. We'll get back to him later. But big loss for Arizona. Big loss. Nice win for San Francisco, I guess. It's kind of cool and everything, but I don't know. It's just being spoiler, I guess. Woohoo. Arizona, crucial loss for them. Las Vegas Raiders, crucial loss for them as well. They're pretty much out. In fact, I would say they are out. Yes, they're absolutely out. 7-8. They're just like the Vikings in a lot of ways. 7-8. After a very, very promising kind of back and forth early part of the season. Super early, they were good. They lost their first game, and they got better, and then they dropped off, and they got a little better again, and then they just went completely down the tubes the last several weeks here. And they're just gone. It's all over. Miami Dolphins 10-5 on the season. They just might go 11-5 if all goes well next week, and they will be in the playoffs in the top wild card. They'll host a game. How about them Dolphins? Different vibe. seems like 2 years ago in 2018, they were just complete garbage. Absolutely garbage. The Vikings just kind of rolled all over them. Fitzmagic had kind of a crazy play, and they ended up defeating the Raiders right at the last second. So good for Fitzmagic performing some more magic, I guess. Crazy moment. Absolutely crazy, but good for the Dolphins. It is what it is. He got beat up pretty good in the game. Derek Carr put up a ton of yards, but just could not finish drives, and that's kind of what the Raiders' vibe was. Nelson Aguilar, 155 yards, 85-yard touchdown in the game, but on only 5 catches, though. Can you imagine 155 yards? Darren Waller also, what an awesome game for Darren Waller of the Oaktown Raiders. I just call them the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. Great performance. Daniel Carlson missed an extra point. That's funny. Made all of his other kicks, but he missed his extra point. Come on, man. Come on, Daniel Carlson. But at least he made all his field goals. Of course, his long was only 38, but whatever. Go Raiders, I guess. But no, ultimately go Dolphins. Andrew Van Ginkel with a couple of sacks in the game to help pressure Derek Carr down the stretch and put the Raiders on ice if they weren't already, and I would say they pretty much were, because the AFC is pretty good this year. AFC is going to win the Super Bowl this year. The AFC will win the Super Bowl. If it's the Bills, the Chiefs, it's going to be one of those two, I think, is going to win the Super Bowl this year at the end of the day. Who knows? Maybe the Packers will shock us, but I doubt it. And there's Aaron Rodgers right now with snow drifting all over Lambeau Field, and the hash marks have got that, they got snow below so you can see the hash marks and all that good stuff, and I don't know, good for them, I guess. First and goal for the Slackers. 11-3 versus the 10-4, Tennessee Titans, as they're knocking on the playoff. They're knocking on that playoff door as well. They are a division leader, are the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, 10-4 on the season, looking to get in there. We'll see how that goes. Dolphins, though, hanging on and hoping to at least host at least one playoff game. Kansas City Chiefs, here's the thing. The entire season, they have just kind of monkeyed around in a lot of games where they're playing super close and they're behind, and then, and then miraculously, or whatever the heck the word is, they just kind of come back and win the game, or they just kind of finish the job. Today was one of those days again where most of the game they're just kind of messing around, dinking around, screwing around. Oh, and by the way, they won the game. 17-14 over the Atlanta Schmucks. No, the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, who are flying very low these days. Oh, with all that talent, this and that, they were shutting out the Chiefs for a very, very long time. And then Travis Kelce got on the end zone on a play that I didn't think he was in, actually. I thought he was out, but it would have been second and goal at with like 3 inches or something. So whatever, they would have probably found a way to get in, would be the Chiefs. But Patrick Mahomes, not that great during the course of the game. Matt Ryan was more efficient, but we all know who the better quarterback is at this stage, and blah, 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 blah. Chiefs defense is very stingy, and I keep saying that every week. It's a very stingy defense. It's well coached by Steve Spagnuolo, who I always wanted the Vikings defensive coordinator to be, but of course it's not going to happen with Mike Zimmer leading the way. Steve Spagnuolo is a legitimate defensive coordinator. Mike Zimmer is going to be like, no, I'm the defensive coordinator. This guy over here is the de facto defensive coordinator. And that's just how it goes. Unfortunately, that's just how it goes in this world. Travis Kelce, to me, he wasn't in, but whatever. They were going to be in anyway. They probably just figured, screw it, at the end of the day, even though you'd hope that's not the way they're thinking. Calvin Ridley just continues to dominate for Atlanta, but it's all in just a wasted season because Atlanta just sucks. 4-11 on the year. They're gonna be really high up there in the draft. They're probably not looking for a quarterback right now. They're looking for just about anything else at this point, except for a wide receiver, I suppose. Quarterback and receiver, I think they're okay, even though Julio Jones, he's never healthy. Just like Todd Gurley with the Rams the last few years was never healthy. Now he's just kind of a guy with Atlanta, basically. And Brian Hill, solid game. Well, on only 7 carries, but solid. Kansas City just kind of, they're starting to remind me of the LA Lakers in the Shaq and Kobe era, where it's like, they'll just kind of mess around, and you've been beating them the whole game. Oh, and by the way, they just beat you on like the last couple of plays of the game. And that's just kind of the Chiefs right now. That's just kind of how the Chiefs are at this point. Patrick Mahomes to DeMarcus Robinson with 1:45 remaining, and that stingy KC defense wrapped up the game when Atlanta tried to get things rolling in the end. That's just the Chiefs right now. And you kind of noticed that at times last year, like when Matt Patricia in Detroit was beating them the entire game, and Kansas City beat them at the end. That's just kind of how it's been ever since about that day. And even when Patrick Mahomes missed time last year, they screwed around to the Vikings the whole game. Vikings just couldn't do jack against that stingy defense, and it was the most frustrating game ever. It was really frustrating. It's more of all people, Matt Moore, Lottie frickin' Daw. Well, Chiefs are 14-1. 15-1 is just one game away, I guess, and they don't really have to even play Mr. Patrick Mahomes. They're kind of like the 94 49ers right now, where the top seed is already wrapped up. They don't need to worry anymore. It's theirs. They are the conference champs in the regular season. Nobody can catch them. Pittsburgh and Buffalo cannot mathematically catch the KC Chiefs. So, I mean, if they play Patrick Mahomes, it would probably be for a quarter. Because the last thing they need is somebody rolling up on that ankle and then snap pola, and guess what? Super Bowl dead. Because we all know how devastating that can be. Of course, remember how good the Raiders were back years ago. And then Derek Carr, the last couple of games of the season, then he broke his ankle, and then that was just it. They had like their third-string quarterback out there. It was so sad. I really like that Raiders team, and they've never been the same. Okay, I've babbled enough on that one. Let's keep moving. Oh, boy, Cleveland, what are you doing? Vince Germano is probably shattering TV screens and windows right now over there in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, because his Browns lost to the bleeping Jets. And I think Jets fans are breaking windows too, because Trevor Lawrence is never going to be a New York Jet unless there's some kind of trade or something where he demands to be on the Jets instead of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which maybe that'll happen. I don't know. But Trevor Lawrence ain't going to be on the Jets right now. Not right now. They're 2-13. They beat Cleveland. Cleveland, what are you doing? Cleveland, what are you doing? Are you looking ahead or something, or what? What are you doing, Cleveland? What happened, man? 23-16. Cleveland drops to 10-5. Good record still, but they should be 12-4, I think. They're a 12-4 type of team. Love their uniforms and everything else. I like the Jets uniforms too. But uniforms don't matter right now. Cleveland should be doing better than this. That Jets defense frustrated Baker Mayfield. He got his yards. They bent, but they didn't break. And Mayfield was just kind of off the whole game. And Sam Darnold was just a little tiny bit better. And Frankie Gore, 38 yards on the ground. Keeping the Chiefs moving the chains a little bit. Just enough anyway. Nothing special. Sheamus and Crowder, all these familiar names on this awful Jets team. And now they have 2 wins. And, well, they'll get Fields, I guess. Or they'll get someone else. Maybe they like Darnold. I don't know. I don't know how you can fall in love with Darnold at this stage. But Cleveland, what are you doing? Oh, it just reeks of missing the playoffs at the last second or out in the first round. Depressing. I want Cleveland to succeed, and they're not succeeding when they're doing crap like that. Looking back for Chicago versus Jack's, that nice fancy restaurant in Minneapolis. There used to be one in Golden Valley, I think, many, many years ago, way back in the day. But that fancy restaurant in Northeast Minneapolis, I believe it's still there. Jack's, J-A-X. No, that's Jacksonville Jaguars, sorry. Yeah, oof. Yeah. How about the Bears, huh? Looking good. Baltimore Ravens are looking good, too. The old Browns are ahead of the new Browns again. When it looked like the new Browns might finally one up the old Browns. After multiple Super Bowls for Baltimore and so many good seasons, Baltimore's alive. They are alive. Maybe they'll make some miraculous run to the Super Bowl. You never know. Just like when Pittsburgh had that 15-1 season, choked right away in the divisional game, and then the next year they went 11-5 after they were like 7-5 or something in Minnesota. Minnesota and Pittsburgh were both 7-5. Pittsburgh won the rest of their games and then won the Super Bowl that year. Who cares about Pittsburgh? Lamar Jackson, very solid performance. Gus Edwards, Lamar Jackson, both rushing for tons of yards. Lamar Jackson rushed for 80 yards, but he did lose a fumble. Gus Edwards also ran for 85 yards in the game. And then J.K. Dobbins ran for 77 yards. All over this New York Jets team. I'm still having nightmares about the Vikings' worst run defense ever. Well, New York's run defense sucks too. At least it did in this game. My Goodness gracious. Look at those numbers. Just look at the numbers. It's really something else. Wow. Baltimore, my goodness. 183 yards passing. Got that established. That yards rushing, 249. So they still, even with all those numbers, they still didn't pass the Saints against the Vikings. Let's just move on. I don't want to talk about that. Saints versus Vikings. We only gave up 52 points. The most since 1963, that's all. Just an average day for the Vikings, right? No, not even as frustrating as it can be. It still wasn't. Des Bryant with one catch, but he got in the end zone. All he does is catch touchdowns for the Baltimore Ravens. 27-13 over the hapless, crapless, icky, yucky New York Giants. Baltimore's back in the playoffs at the moment. They'd be the middle wild card, now that there's 3 of them. They'd be the 6th seed in the AFC. Cleveland still hanging on, barely, over the Indianapolis Colts. Cleveland, you better win next week. Please. I'd rather see Cleveland than Indianapolis, but shoot, Baker Mayfield is not that good, is he? Cincinnati won again. Gosh, I guess these guys don't want high draft picks, do they? Cincinnati, the Jets, everybody but Jacksonville's like winning games all of a sudden. All these crappy bottom teams are winning games all of a sudden. It's kind of funny. Cincinnati took them like half the season to even win a game. They were right there with the Jets for the longest time. 37-31 over the crappy Houston Texans. The Houston Texans will now draft higher than Cincinnati. Whoops. But Houston, they need everything but a quarterback at this stage. Pretty much. They need everything but a quarterback at this stage. Their defense sucks. Their wide receivers are depleted. The running back, boy, well, they got Mr. I don't want to go there, but David and Duke Johnson. They got the double D's running that, running for the Houston Texans. And it's very unimpressive and uninspiring, isn't it? Except for today, though. David Johnson dominated, man. David Johnson. So, Joey, shame on you, right? 128 yards, 48-yard scamper, almost 11 yards a carry for David Johnson, and only 12 carries. David Johnson could barely even stay healthy. Good numbers, though. Good numbers in Cincinnati. Crazy stuff. Brandon Allen with 2 touchdowns and 371 yards. Actually, kind of an exciting game between 2 crappy teams, but fun to watch. Fun to watch for Houston and Cincinnati fans, I'm sure. Big numbers on both sides. Deshaun Watson, 3 touchdowns. There were no interceptions in the game. There was a fumble by Deshaun Watson, though, unfortunately, which ended up being the difference when you consider how close this game was back and forth. Well, how about them? Who cares? Both of them are out. Let's keep moving. Let's talk about the playoffs a little more. The Los Angeles Chargers and Denver Broncos, neither team makes the playoffs. Either cute little old division rivalry, but it's meaningless, kind of like Minnesota versus Detroit next week. 19-16, the Chargers over the Broncos. Aren't we happy for them? Drew Lock, awful. Justin Herbert, little better. Drew Lock had probably his worst game of the year. Just an absolute mess. Couple interceptions. Couldn't get anything going, really, for the most part. Just couldn't. He had a couple moments, but nothing great. I don't really want to continue with this one. Who cares? Chargers and Broncos are meh at best. It's the meh bowl, right? Carolina and Washington. Well, this game had playoff implications for the Washington Redskins, and, well, they're still winning their division at 6-9. 9 losses, and they're winning their division. I suppose the 7-9 Seahawks won their division, and they won a playoff game years ago. I think it was against the Packers, wasn't it? Or was it the Saints? It was the Saints, I think, back in 2011 or something like that. It's pretty funny. Yeah, the Saints. They beat the Saints. It was hilarious, if I remember correctly. 7-9. That was when the Seahawks were just getting started. Carolina's 5-10, and they won. Oh, that's cute. That's adorable. Well, unfortunately, they'll be probably picking ahead of the Vikings. Woohoo! Regardless of what happens now, because we won the game versus the Carolina Panthers. So that's one of those tiebreakers you don't want, but we got it. We can beat Carolina when both of us suck and neither of us are going to make the playoffs. But boy, oh boy, when we're going for that number 1 seed in the NFC, we can't beat Carolina in 2009 or 2017. Brilliant. Always brilliant stuff. Washington football team 6-9 on the year. Not a good game. And unfortunately, Alex Smith was not ready to go. Dwayne Haskins had some conduct detrimental to the team a bit last week, and he was absolutely putrid in the game versus Carolina. Absolutely putrid. And then you get to see Taylor Heineke, quarterback, the Washington football team. Taylor Heineke. Do you remember that name with the Minnesota Vikings? All those, 3 consecutive preseasons in a row? Taylor Heineke. Let's go, Taylor. And he had a nice, pretty drive, and the Vikings cut him. And then we never heard from him with Minnesota again. Well, he had 137 yards after Dwayne Haskins Jr. just fell off the face of the planet. And he threw a touchdown. He threw an NFL touchdown. Taylor Heineke with a quarterback rating over 100 today. Good for him. Good for Taylor Heineke. He was able to complete one to J.D. McKissick, who had 77 yards. But generally, Teddy Bridgewater and Carolina getting the job done. Neither quarterback was great in the game. It was Taylor Heineke was the best quarterback, but boy, Carolina got the job done at the end of the day. We almost forgot about their star running back in North Carolina, McCaffrey. I pretty much have forgotten about him. Vanished off the face of the earth. Washington is still in first place, though, because that division sucks that bad. That NFC East, it just sucks. Dallas Cowboys won. Philadelphia had maybe the narrowest of margins to try to somewhat get back into things, and it's over. They're completely dead. In fact, they weren't going to catch them anyway. The Cowboys actually are in the mix now. Andy Dalton and the Dallas Cowboys, 6-9, are breathing down the Washington Redskins' back. The old rivals, Washington and Dallas, back in the day, I guess. No, yeah, it was back in the day in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Cowboys and Washington Redskins. Classic matchup going into next week, I guess. We'll see what happens, which team ends up winning that division. But right now, Washington still holds the lead. Philadelphia is kaput, along with the hapless and crapless New York Giants, who could have actually still been alive today. They would have been 6-9. Imagine if there was a three-way tie. But Philly just flat sucks. And we'll see what happens with Doug Peterson and all of that crap. Jalen Hurts put up great numbers in terms of yardage, but he had multiple interceptions, and Andy Dalton just dominating. Was Andy Dalton ever this good with the Cincinnati Bengals? Because he is awesome with Dallas. It's safe to say at this point, Andy Dalton has been awesome with the Dallas Cowboys. He has. I mean, he kicked our butts, and he kicked other teams' butts pretty much the whole time he's been with the Cowboys this year. He's been great. Somebody's going to want to sign him as a starter, and then he'll get the starting job somewhere, and he'll be back to being mediocre, average, run-of-the-mill Andy. Just Andy Dalton. He's just Andy Dalton. That's what he is. But with Dallas, he's been absolutely great. The Cowboys might just say, screw Dak Prescott, get rid of that big contract, keep Dalton and go from there. I don't know. Zeke Elliott, solid game. CeeDee Lamb had some okay numbers, but he did get in the end zone. Michael Gallup, who's obviously a killer of the Vikings and others, along with Amari Cooper, 121 yards each, but Michael Gallup was the fantasy guy this week, at least for the Cowboys, with 2 touchdowns, 121 yards. Of course, Deshaun Jackson with only 1 catch, but it was an 81-yard play from Jalen Hurts. Those 2 guys combining on the highlight of the day for the Eagles. Other than that, though, Andy Dalton and the Cowboys dominated the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, sorry. Philadelphia, hey, yeah. No, I can imagine all the curse words, but yeah, forget it. Philadelphia's dead anyway at this point, and they've been dead. Andy Dalton has been awesome with the Cowboys. It's safe to say he's been great. He has been absolutely great. A lot of those games, Dalton wasn't even the quarterback before that. He was banged up. When those games when Dallas was like completely out of the mix, they were just complete garbage after Dak Prescott broke his ankle real nastily. And the LA Rams are 9-6 now because they couldn't beat Seattle. Seattle's knocking on the door still for that top seed in the NFC, if you can believe it. Packers, though, are winning at the moment versus the Tennessee Titans. Interesting. 6-0 score. That's cute and everything. 11-4 Sea Chickens had a little dip during the course of the season, but they're back to doing real well again. 11-4. It's a pretty good record at the end of the day, despite some lousy defense. Seattle's not winning any Super Bowl this year, so any talk about Seattle winning the Super Bowl, not going to happen. I think Tampa's actually more likely to win the Super Bowl than the Seattle Seahawks at this point, but we'll see what happens. I don't like Seattle at all. Jared Goff just continues to be a mediocre number 1 overall pick which that's the thing. Don't get too excited about all these number one overall picks because they don't always work out. Tim Couch was looked on to be like a can't-miss stud, and he never did jack. It could go on forever. I mean, Ryan Leaf, everybody thought he was going to be good, and he ended up being a maniac. So it happens. I would hope at this point things will be better for these. The Trevor Lawrence truly is a can't-miss, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes at the end of the day. So let's attempt to move on if we can from that. Can't stay on it too long. I don't know. But Seattle, it's just, they're knocking on the door. This wasn't the most exciting game I've ever seen. In fact, it really wasn't at all. The Rams only mustered 9 yucky points. They're 9-6 on the season. Their current statistics, well, they're still in first place. No, second place. What am I talking about? They're still in second place. They're a wild card team. Why am I saying first place? Seattle's pretty much got that wrapped up at this point, right? I can't imagine anybody's going to catch Seattle. They won their division. Yes, that's what I expected. Yep, they won the The Rams are second, so the division's over. They clinched it today. The Rams might have won the division if they won today, but they blew it. The Rams blew their opportunity, and they got beat pretty bad. It was in Seattle, so kind of is what it is. I don't like Seahawks. I don't like the Seahawks. I mean, I'm not in love with the Rams or anything, but I like them more than the Seahawks. Tampa Bay's the top wild card, 10-5 for them at this stage, because of the Saints. Yeah, they can't catch the Saints, can they? So that's unfortunate. The Saints absolutely obliterated them a couple of weeks ago, and that's why. I mean, good luck. Chicago 8-7 on the season. Let's just keep moving. I don't want to talk about this game. It's just meh. Too much babbling on my part anyway. Slackers in Tennessee right now 6-0 in favor of the Green Bay Packers. Are going to win the NFC? No, maybe. And then tomorrow, Buffalo Bills. I wish I could see them, but I will be able to see them. But I mean, I wish I could talk about that game at this time, but I can't. It's Monday Night Football, and I'm suspecting the Packers will win tonight, just because. But we'll see what happens at the end of the day. So that's part of the NFC North. We'll kind of keep an eye on it, literally monitor it during the course of the rest of the show here. Segment 3, and of course the Lions conversation, which is the most fascinating thing ever. Wow, already an hour on this show. Bears all over Jacksonville today, and they're the wild card team, 7th seed. You know that the 7th wild card seed exists, 7th seed in the third wild card anyway. 41-17 over the Trevor Lawrence-led Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, soon to be Trevor Lawrence-led Jacksonville Jaguars, unless he refuses to show up for the Jaguars and demands a trade to the Jets or the Bears or the Vikings or something. Yeah, the Vikings. Well, the Bears have wrapped up second place. That's a done deal. In fact, they pretty much did last week by smoking us the way they did. 265 yards for Trubisky. Mitchie Mitchell, two touchdowns and interception. Nothing great. Mike Glennon was nothing great either. Mike Glennon's a backup quarterback. And then some guy named Dare Ogunbowale instead of James Hollywood Robinson leading the way. James Powerful Robinson, Hulk Hogan Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. The big duty is no game today for him. Unfortunately, David Montgomery, 95 yards, averaging 4 yards a game, 4 yards a run. Solid performance. 3 rushing touchdowns for the Bears in the game. One of them was for Mitchell Trubisky, Artavius Pierce, and David Montgomery, the lead back there. Allen Robinson all over the place in today's game. Mr. Trubisky was looking for him time and time again. Jimmy Graham had a huge day today. He'd been invisible for a long time, but he's got some of those Hall of Fame-like numbers. Reached a big milestone today, and good for him. Couple of touchdowns for Jimmy Graham. He's like way up there in terms of tight end touchdowns in NFL history. Those years with the Packers, the Sea Chickens, and the New Orleans Saints years ago, way up there now. 80 total touchdowns for Jimmy Graham. So good for him. 80 total touchdowns. Big milestone for him. Older guy, obviously not that old, but old enough. Definitely old, and he dropped off quite a bit the past couple of years after being so good with the Saints and the Seahawks in the past. But again, nice, solid. And Nick Foles actually played for a couple of seconds in the game. Good for him, I guess. Handing the ball off, this and that, and missing on a play on one incomplete pass. It is what it is. At least Nick Foles is alive, I guess. That's the good part. The Bears hopefully they're going to make it, at least for their sake. We'll see what's going on with that very shortly. I'm curious who they're going to play next week. Let's check it out. But who actually are the Bears playing next week? I think it's Green Bay, isn't it? Oh, boy. If it's Green Bay, well, okay. Yeah, it is Green Bay. That's what I thought. Okay, well, go Bears. I hope the Bears win that game. I'd rather see the Bears make the playoffs than Green Bay be a number one seed or anything. Just as long as the Packers lose, that's good. And I don't know, I kind of like the Bears more than some of these other teams. I don't know. I'd rather see the Bears make it than, let me see, who else is out there right now fighting for anything at the moment? Oh, Arizona. I kind of like Arizona too, actually. I think a lot of people would like to see them in the playoffs, DeAndre Hopkins and such, but they have underachieved. The Bears have overachieved the past few weeks after, a lot of people thought that it was pure luck with their 5-1 start, but we'll see. Detroit, this is like a 5-second conversation, really. I mean, yeah, we're going to play Detroit next week to wrap up the season. Tampa Bay rolled all over this team. Wow. It was kind of like what the Saints did to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers earlier this season. Bucks, for their sake, hoping to finish 11-5, and we'll see what happens. If they can pull off some kind of a exciting miracle and get back to the Super Bowl for Tom Brady's sake, and maybe pull off the ultimate miracle, win his 7th Super Bowl, being the Chiefs. But I don't think anybody's going to beat the Chiefs right now. Not because they're so spectacular, but because they just flat out get wins every single game. Blaine Gabbert even threw for 2 touchdowns in the game, replacing Tom Brady with his perfect 158.3 quarterback rating, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, and this wasn't even in the fourth quarter. Mike Evans with 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. Oh, man. Chris Goodwin, a touchdown with 84 yards. Rob Gronkowski with 2 touchdowns, 58 yards, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns for Rob Gronkowski. One of them 33 yards out. Antonio Brown also receiving a touchdown. 6 passing touchdowns for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Leonard Fournette, the former Jacksonville Jaguar, also ran one in. Pretty crazy. Tampa Bay just crushed, and I mean destroyed and humiliated the Detroit Lions. Ryan Suckup missed a field goal. That's about it. That's the only negative thing you could say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the game. Matt Prater couldn't even make an extra point. He's just had a rotten season. No, he made it. I'm looking at this wrong. He made it. He made 1 extra point. That's all he was able to do. They couldn't get in field goal range the rest of the game. Everson Griffin got a sack. Good for him. So that's obviously a familiar name around here. Miles Killebrew. Well, Killebrew's a familiar name. Everson Griffin, 7 sacks on the season for Detroit. Feel bad for him. It is what it is. He was with Dallas for a little while and then wound up with Detroit. Woo. What a fun year it must have been for him. I'm sorry, Everson. That can't be fun. 7 total sacks, though, for Mr. Everson Griffin. Getting his 4th and a half, basically, with Detroit in 7 games. So, an okay season for Everson Griffin. Not like the old days with Minnesota, though, when he dominated. And he was a legitimate Pro Bowl player for the Vikings. Purple people eater, for us. Detroit, obviously the history has been generally good versus Detroit, especially in the Matt Patricia era, but it's over. So Vikings did finish undefeated versus the vaunted Matt Patricia. As we lost last to Detroit with Jim Caldwell as coach in 2017. Jim Caldwell leading the way for the Detroit Lions. This was actually the year he got let go, poor guy. He got let go after that season. They beat us, and that was the day Dalvin Cook tore his ACL in U.S. Bank Stadium. October the 1st, 2017, Dalvin Cook tore his ACL on a freak play, fumbled on the play. It was just the craziest, darndest thing. No contact, just fumbled the ball. Probably a shock from the pain and the herky-jerk moment with his knee just kind of hyperextending suddenly the way it did. It was just a bummer, man. That was the last time we lost to Detroit. So, I don't know. I'm sure a lot of us wouldn't mind losing to Detroit, finishing 6-10 and getting a higher draft pick, whatever that might be, and maybe position ourselves for some type of trade for a quarterback of the future. Because, I mean, even with Kirk Cousins signed for 2 more years, it's not the end of the world taking your quarterback of the future right away. Right now, there's nothing wrong with having a guy on the bench for a couple of years, this and that, or even taking over Kirk Cousins during his 2nd season, should things head that direction. Because Kirk Cousins, if he gets any type of extension with Minnesota, I'll be shocked. He's put up nice numbers, Kirk Cousins, but the Minnesota Vikings did not come in equipped, ready to go for what type of quarterback Kirk Cousins is. Kirk Cousins is not an elusive guy who can get away from pressure. He gets his ass kicked. He fumbles, or he just takes the sack because he doesn't sense the pressure until it's too late. And that's a lot of times why he gets strip sacked as well. Kirk Cousins' case. But undefeated versus Matt Patricia. And, of course, the Vikings also defeated Jim Caldwell in Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. And that was the last time the Vikings played against Jim Caldwell with the Detroit Lions. 5-0 versus Matt Patricia. And now the sixth game, which would have been the sixth game if Matt Patricia was able to finish 3 full seasons with the Lions. But he won't now. It's all over. It's all over. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Patricia was the defensive coordinator for the vaunted New England Patriots at the time, giving up billions of yards, but they got to the Super Bowl only to lose to Philly down the stretch. Mostly offensive line not protecting Brady down the stretch. What's up with Green Bay now? 12 to nothing. What's going on? Missing some extra points here, are we? Because I'm concentrating on the podcast and missing what happened afterward. What's going on there? But yeah, I'm not going to go over the deep, rich history of Minnesota versus Detroit in this game, because leading up to this one. Next year I'll do it again, because you heard it earlier, the previous episode, when things were more interesting. At the time, Vikings were still very much alive during the course of this season. It was a nice feeling, 34-20. Back on November the 8th, Vikings very much alive still at that stage, just kind of romping all over Matt Patricia. And ultimately, he lost his job, so it kind of is what it is. Finishes over the course of the seasons. The Vikings, again, will finish either 7-9 or 6-10. Way back in 61, we were 3-11. The next year, 2-11. Those are the early days. I don't know why I'm going over all that. But there were the thin years from 61 to 67. Oh, boy, you got their conference finals, this and that. 1972, what a disappointment. I remember Tarkington mentioning that, how when he first got back to Minnesota, it was kind of disappointing. And then things took off after that, years later. That was a disappointing year, 7-7. Oof, that was back when it was a 14-game season. But you had 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and we lost all of them. And, of course, in 1969 was the biggest disappointment of all. Vikings were heavily favored over that Chiefs team. Couldn't get the job done. It's interesting to note, though, all the some of those conference championship games we went to as well that we ended up losing, unfortunately. Lost the conference championship in 77 with Tommy Kramer at quarterback because Tarkenton broke his leg earlier that year. Very, very disappointing there. So, Vikings' first ever playoff game wasn't until 1968. The Vikings were a non-playoff team for 8 seasons, pretty much. No, 7 seasons. And then we made it in 68. Pretty crazy. And lost to the Baltimore Colts, who actually won the Super Bowl that year with Johnny Unitas. Johnny Unitas. Vikings, yeah. How many times did we beat the Rams in the playoffs back in the old days? When we beat the Cleveland Browns to win the quote-unquote NFL championship 1 year before it became the NFC. I remember many years ago, I saw NFL champions. So we did win the Super Bowl in 1969. We won the Super Bowl. No, we didn't. It was like baseball back then. The National League and the American League. The AFL and the NFL. It was like baseball. And then it's like, okay, let's call it conferences. The NFL is all one, is the entire league. And then it's the National Football Conference and the American Football Conference. Yeah. I know you're all like, you're bored with me now. It's only 51 years ago, I know. And I wasn't born yet. I was born 10 years later. Yep. So I'm 41, not 51. Lost the Super Bowl after being favored by 18 points over those Chiefs. And, well, they finally got their second Super Bowl 50 years later. But it's just kind of funny. That's how Kansas City is. Took 30. They won one World Series in 85. I talked about this last week. Won the World Series exactly 30 years later in 2015 over the New York Mets. They beat the Cardinals in 85. Kansas City Chiefs beat the Vikings in 69 and then beat the San Francisco 49ers. A couple of historical teams there. That old Purple People Eater team before when they were really young, just getting started. And then beat the 49ers team. Historical franchise, not a historical team necessarily. They both some good players. And they came back and beat them. Damn it. Bummer. Yep. So we lost the conference final in 77, which was a string of mini conference final losses. Because that was kind of that's the plateau the Vikings had reached. You lost the conference final versus the Cowboys in 77. I thought we lost the conference final in 80 also, but apparently it was a divisional playoff game versus the Eagles. So, okay, so it was the Cowboys in 77. So, yes, it is several conference championships. That's the plateau we've been on since 77, losing 23-6 in Dallas. A 9-5 decent Viking team after beating the Rams only 14-7. Tommy Kramer leading the way, but we lost NFC title game in 77 in Dallas Cowboy land, Dallas, Texas. Lost to the Deadskins in 20. No, that's 82. What am I looking at? We lost to the Redskins 17-10, not 21-7. We lost to the Redskins. Yeah, and then we missed the playoffs 4 years in a row after losing in the second round. We beat the Falcons. That's kind of cool. In 1982, way back in the day. Couldn't name a single player on that roster. But the Redskins, though, that was the Joe Gibbs era when they started to get super good. Lost to the Redskins there. Joe Gibbs is an old man. Lost to the Redskins in 87. And then, of course, all those conference championships since. Oh, boy. It's like 2 and then 98. 98 was number 3 since 1977. Man. 98, 2000, Saints, and the freaking Eagles. So, yep, that's what I thought. It was 6 consecutive conference championship losses now that we've had. Oh, boy. Yeah, well, hopefully we can get over that hump one of these days. It's just like eternal. Absolutely eternal. Made the playoffs last year. Very fun, exciting win over the Saints. Got romped by them this year in the regular season, and we'll see what the Saints do in the playoffs. Who knows? And then got romped by 49ers last year. We were just never in that stupid game. Me and Paul Tuniverse Caniff just knew it the whole time. Oh, boy. We're 21 and 30 all-time in the postseason, our Minnesota, so not good when you look at the entire thing. Regular season, historically, the Vikings 488 and 403 and 11 ties. And then you combine everything, 509 with the playoffs, and then 433. But to be 9 games under 500 historically in the postseason, certainly not one of the prouder franchises in terms of postseason success. Postseason appearances, we're one of the all-time leaders in the postseason appearances. Postseason games played and all that, particularly in the Super Bowl era. But success is not there. 9 games under 500. That's pretty bad, Fire the coach, right? If the coach is 21 and 33 overall, I think he's fired, right? Don't you think he's fired? Or no, 21 and 30, not 33. Hopefully we don't get to that, too, where it just continues to build up and build up. But 21 and 30, that's just below average. It's just, again, if that's a coach's record over a number of years, he's fired. It's not working. That type of thing. Obviously, though, that's several coaches over several years. Fascinating look back on going down memory lane, of course, like always. Footballdb.com, so it's football database for the Vikings versus Lions. And that's usually when I look up at matchup history with Detroit or whoever else. Chicago, Philadelphia, blah, 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 blah. Every team that's ever in the NFL. And then, of course, the list of Viking finishes, I went on to Wikipedia for that, because that's all kind of there. So, citing those websites for the information there, those sources of information. With that, we'll take a quick break. We'll hear from Mad Martin, look at what the rest of you have to say, and wrap up the show.
Hi, Joey. Well, I guess the season's over after last night's defeat against the Bears. If nothing, it was a distraction from the COVID crisis for 3 months. Here in Scotland, we go back into a national lockdown day after Christmas, so not a great deal to look forward to. But in respect to the team, I really do feel it's time to move on from Zimmer, and I say that with deep regret. I think the guy's done pretty well, but if you look at the modern NFL, building a great defense with so many moving parts is incredibly difficult. Your window of opportunity is small. You've got a lot of players in the modern salary cap, and you can't afford them all. You've got injuries, age as well. And to be a constant contender in that respect is almost impossible. I think we've done very well under Zimmer. We've been competitive, but we've not been great. And at my age, I want to see great. I want to see this team finally cross the line and win a Lombardi. And I don't believe we can do it under Zimmer. I really don't. And I say that with regret. And I suppose if you look at it, you've got a GM and a coach that have different ideas on how to build a roster. I really believe that over the last, certainly a couple of drafts. So for 2021, I would like to see them move up in the draft and snag one of these young mobile quarterbacks. Yes, it's a risk, but I think it's a risk you have to take. If you want to finally get a trophy in the case, you have to take risks. And I think ultimately the Vikings have been a very conservative franchise. And they've been successful to a degree. But it is a degree. And I think now it's time to get a young quarterback sitting behind Cousins for maybe a season and a half. Let him learn under whoever. And I don't think Zimmer would be good for a new young quarterback because I don't think he has the patience. So those are my thoughts on where I'd like to see us go next season. New head coach, a young quarterback sitting behind Cousins because you're not going to get rid of Cousins. You can't dump that contract on another team. Other than that, I mean, we have some great pieces. You know, we've got JJ, Phelan, and their talents are being wasted under the play calling of Kubrick. As far as I'm concerned, we are playing a 1980s style of offence in the 21st century, which is just bloody stupid. That's it, really. So, Joey, Merry Christmas to you and to all the listeners of the podcast. Appreciate all the great work you do. Stay safe, my friends. Stay safe, everybody. Skol, brothers and sisters.
And a very Merry Christmas to you as well, my friend. Thank you so much. Dave Martin, Mad Martin out of Northern Scotland. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year coming up. Stay safe as well. So skol to all of you. And skol to you, Dave Martin, Mad Martin, out of Northern Scotland. Thank you so much. Always deeply appreciated hearing from you and love what you had to say there. Can't disagree with anything. I mean, the thought of moving on from Mike Zimmer, not a bad idea, really, quite frankly. I mean, it's been driving me crazy what's been going on. And I know he's a good coach and all that, and he's good at what he does. You know, he's worked magic with the defense and all that, and the cornerbacks. But, yes, and I think you do have to take a risk. And I know we've failed taking risks in the past, but trading up, it seems like we almost never do it. And whenever we do it, it's not always the best thing. Now, we traded up to get Teddy Bridgewater at the end of the first round. He might not have been a spectacular quarterback, but I think he's the kind of guy that could have led this franchise, especially without that knee injury. With Carolina, he's been okay, but, I mean, he's missing a lot of weapons over there. I mean, no Christian McCaffrey and such would have helped a lot, I think, with Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think he's no Patrick Mahomes. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not this guy. He's not that guy. But he could end up in a pretty good quarterback, particularly without the injury. So we'll have to wait and see how things go from there. Again, can't thank Bad Martin enough for such an awesome year. Hope to continue to hear from him forever and ever on this show. We'll be hearing from some other legendary members of the Purple Mafia show over many, many years. Last week was episode 333, wasn't it? Literally run over, where this week it's worst run defense ever. And it truly was. Sam Gutma and out of California. And who are the others that like the tweet? I didn't see their names for some reason. I don't know why that is. 5 retweets. Wow, that's really cool. So lots of retweets here. It's not showing the people, though, which I don't understand. Okay, yep, Mad Martin retweeted it. That's awesome. Tene Brown out of New Zealand. Malcolm McSween out of California. And Vince Germano out of Australia. Thank you guys so very much. There's a quote tweet as well. Let's see, the likes were, Sam Gutma, Malcolm McSween, and Gerald String also on Twitter. Occasionally shows up on Twitter. And then a quote tweet from Gerald String. He says, best Vikings podcast out there, even though we couldn't pull off the season sweep of the Bears. Thought it was a pretty hard-fought game. Yeah, that was a major frustration at the time. We were literally run over in that one in a big way. That was last week's show. My mind is all messed up, and I apologize for that. I'm just kind of out of sorts, just thinking of all the frustrating losses this team has endured during the course of time. And yeah, we were literally run over last week, and this week we were run over even more so. It was worse. That's why you just call it the worst run defense ever. Matt Martin says, "Yep, we'll listen to this later. Well, we did not expect great things this season, and sadly, they delivered that. I shall root for the Browns the rest of the season with all their Viking connections. We should have gone with Kevin at head coach, Kevin Stefanski." Yep, I can't disagree with that. I think I responded to him. I think I did. Right? Yes, I did. I said, I'm with you when it comes to the Browns. That will be very fun to keep up with them. I hope they make some type of noise in the AFC. I wish we had Kevin Stefanski also. I was trying to say sad face, but it says sad face. That's cute. That would have been a major upgrade, apparently. And it's freaking sad. It's a big bummer. I truly wish. I think someone else responded as well. Nope, that was just me. It looked like someone else did. But yeah, it would have been nice to have Kevin Stefanski. So what happened with the Packers is now they're up 19-6. The Titans just scored, and they're now going to get their extra point. We'll see if it actually goes through. Got Scousey. The kick is up, and it is perfect. Nice job. This is just before the half here. 37 seconds remaining, of course, with Aaron Rodgers, who knows. So what happened was Crosby missed. That's, of course, the Packers kicker, not Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mason Crosby of the Packers. Yeah. He missed the first extra point. The Packers went for 2 and failed, so that's why he had that weird score of 12. And then now 19, so they just kind of got the 7 points added on board. They stopped screwing around with that, tempting with fate, so to speak, because it was just getting weirder and weirder. 19-7 is your score. Green Bay and Tennessee as they near the half. They're not officially there yet. Matt Martin says, what bugs me is the Vikings fans who say, oh, we had no preseason. Well, neither did anyone else, and Kevin Stefanski, new head coach, to install a new offense with no bleeping preseason, working well in Cleveland. I agree. I'm tired of hearing about that, too. We had no preseason. Nobody had a preseason. And yes, you had the rookie cornerbacks, and you lost Daniel Hunter, and you lost Michael Pierce. Other teams are missing players as well. I mean, every team in the NFL has injuries. Every team in the NFL has guys opting out, this and that. It just happened. Unfortunately, it was some pretty significant players, but still, I mean, it is what it is. And sometimes backups got to step up, just like Anthony Harris did years ago when you had injuries in the secondary when Harrison Smith missed a couple games versus like Seattle, Green Bay. Anthony Harris stepped up later on that year, and we ended up showing us that he's a legitimate safety for us, and ended up being a better starter than Andrew Sendejo could have ever hoped to be for a little while there. And then this year, it's been a big drop-off. He got a pretty good paycheck for 1 year, but it's been massively disappointing ever since. Yannick Ngakoue saying God is great. That's nice. And then, and I agree. Mad Martin says, Merry Christmas, Joey, ... Yep, I hope hope everything's going okay and he's feeling all right there. Merry Christmas again to you, Mad Martin. I was saying that Lattimore is a punk, and yes, I ranted quite a bit in that first segment. I hope I didn't offend anybody with what I said. Who knows? I hope not. Sam Gupta out of California says, hello, Joey. A belated Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you for keeping the show running during a tough year. And you're very welcome, and it's my honor to bring you the show. I only hope that I haven't dropped off in quality, because some people they kind of come and go, and it's sad. And I miss some of the people out there, but I'm just more than grateful for you, Malcolm, guys like that have stuck around for a long time. Obviously, Dave Martin's been around for about 5 or 6 years already, which is just absolute honor. Mark Carlson's been around about 8 years. Dave Hickey about 7, Tony Coleman was about 10 years, and I don't know what happened to him, so I'm kind of sad. Hopefully he hasn't completely lost interest in the show. But those of you that have stuck around for so long, Gerald String's been about 11 years. Appreciate you guys so freaking much, man. I really do. I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can, guys. I'm going to keep her coming as long as I can. It'd be greatly appreciated. That please keep telling your friends about the show. The numbers haven't really dropped off that much. They're just a slow burn. Like, it takes a while for them to kind of add up. But part of that's kind of Hipcast. Hipcast is kind of a weird page. they've got their, they have their technical issues sometimes, but they're some of the nicest people. So it's hard to just say, screw you guys, I'm out of here. When you've been a part of things for 12 freaking years. It's the only podcast host I've ever had. So I'd hate to leave them. Even though Dylan was the guy working with them for the longest time, now I've taken over completely with the whole quote-unquote network now. It's basically mine. I'm going to call it Paladinolive Podcasting Network someday and actually make it a real network at some point. I've just been very slow getting that moving, unfortunately. So now we'll get to the Facebook page and wrap things up gradually here. The most recent episode, 333, literally ran over. Were there any comments? There were not. Just a share, but thank you for whoever shared it. The in-game thread, very relatively quiet, and I don't blame you because it's Christmas Day. I'm sure some people just didn't want to make the time for it and bust their, stick of the Vikings this year. Gerald String says, out of Nebraska, says, Merry Christmas, Purple Mafia Nation. Let's go play the spoiler today. That would be a great gift, and that would have been fun. Jerry Hicks out of St. Louis, I believe he's still from there, originally from here, says, was really looking forward to this game, having a little meaning to it for the Vikes, but will be fun to watch nonetheless, I hope. I wish it was too. I was saying it would be nice if our defense showed up, but of course not. Mike Dale out of New York area, the New York State, anyway, not the city, says, Merry Christmas and goodwill to all. Man, that was awesome. Except Sean Payton. He says, haha, I'm joking, of course, but seriously, I don't even want to see him winning his initial $2 back on a lottery scratch-off, let alone a football game, and I feel the same way, and I really don't like the Saints at all. As you could tell in the first segment, that was a lot of pinned-up, unhappiness, we'll call it. And I was kind of going off on Lattimore and all of them. I just don't like those guys. Gerald String says Harrison Hand making some plays today. And yeah, he's gotten better during the course of the season. Hopefully next year he can end up being a major upgrade from what Holden Hill was at the very least. Like, Holden Hill ended up being a free agent pickup basically. Undrafted free agent. And then Harrison Hand was a late draft pick, I believe 6th round for Minnesota. Hopefully he ends up being good. Mark Carlson says, watching with family here, I must say Merry Christmas, Paladino Joey, and to all Purple Mafia worldwide, in case I don't get back to share my comments otherwise. Yeah, thank you so much. Mark out of Iowa. Again, 8-year veteran of Purple Mafia. I think it's his 9th overall season, though. Gerald String, 12th overall season, and my 13th covering the Minnesota Vikings. Yes, sir, indeedy. Absolutely cool stuff. Absolutely cool stuff. He says, Cousins and Cook looking sharp so far. That was Gerald String out of Nebraska. He says, man, you wonder why they didn't go for 2. Guessing they don't trust Bailey to potentially tie the game. Yeah, scary, isn't it? Gerald String says, trying to make a game out of this, and they were for a little while there. Mike Dale says, looks like we could be in for a shootout, and we certainly were. We were in for quite the shootout, but then it just got absolutely crazy after that. Pardon me. Getting a mild interruption there. Very mild. Brett McCarthy. There he is. Been with us all year. Thank you so much, Brett McCarthy out of South Dakota. Awesome guy. Says, Skol. Merry Christmas. Let's spoil the Saints. And Merry Christmas and Skol to you, Brett McCarthy. Gerald String says Bailey. And then covering his face. Yep. Another missed extra point. Kevin Prevacek, I think he's posted in the past. He says, Merry Christmas, hot socks. Wonder who he meant there. Interesting. Well, yeah, mostly just kind of greetings and stuff, but hey, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you guys for those comments. That is totally fine. It's a different kind of day, it's not like we're up here just, we're not just up here messing around, it's Christmas Day, so that's just how it is. That's how it is sometimes when it comes to things at the end of the day. So, Vikings versus Saints post-game thread. Not a whole lot, but at least the comments are good. That's what matters most, that the comments are actually pretty good. Now, is it loading? It was, and then it didn't, and they're all relevant, so stop asking me which is the most relevant. They're all relevant. Mike Dale says, pros, Irv Smith Jr., so happy they are finally getting him involved regularly. He is a definite weapon that opposing teams should start fearing. Harrison, not Smith, Hand. Yeah, he was good, wasn't he? Cons. Well, the defense has been pretty poor again. especially against the run. So many missed tackles, it was nauseating. Of course, with so many players out, we can't expect much out of them. They will be much improved when they line up against opposing teams next season. That said, the season is over. Hopefully Trey Lance will be available in the draft when the Vikings get their first round pick, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. I'm hoping for the best. Hope the Vikings get somebody that's actually hardcore and legit in the future coming forward. I truly, truly believe it for the best there. So now Brett McCarthy says, defense is terribly depleted. We have good young talent, just not consistent. So yeah, it's all a matter of time when some of these guys get healthier and such. And of course, going into next season, hopefully, and then some of these guys continue to develop. If Harrison Hands ends up being something, maybe we won't have to go with a cornerback in the first round. Because let's not take a quarterback with a T, not with an N. Quarter, T, Texas, not Nevada, Texas, T, quarterback. Yes, quarter. Yeah. I think you get the point, but I'll just keep saying it anyway. That's what the Vikings need. And go ahead and make fun of me. Some of you that might think Cousins is the answer. Well, I don't know. I don't think too many people think he is. He's not as much the problem as just generally speaking. The whole gosh darn coaching scheme is probably worse than the actual quarterback is. But and the whole situation of, you get a guy, you put all the eggs in the basket for this one guy, and you don't have anybody there to protect him when you know he's the kind of guy that's not going to be good when he doesn't have protection. He's not the kind of, he doesn't sense pressure with eyes in the back of his head like Tom Brady. He just doesn't have it. Only few guys have it. And then you have Aaron Rodgers with his mobility, Patrick Mahomes, this and that. As I try not to cough to death, thank God for the dumb button, so to speak. The little equal sign, sideways equal sign, right? But no, anybody with any type of mobility that can get that quick little step up and get away from the pressure, that's not who Kirk Cousins is, even though he ran a couple of times against the Bears and it was quite impressive. But that was then, and, that's not every week. Danae Brown out of New Zealand wraps things up here, saying, this game reminded me of Leslie Frazier's last season with the Vikings. It did, didn't it? Understandable with how depleted we are, how bad the defense is, but man, someone's got to make a tackle now and then. Yeah, they're still NFL players. That's the whole thing. That's a good argument. That's a damn good argument. They're still NFL players. Make a frickin' tackle. Just like NBA players, just imagine like it's a backup point guard or something because, D'Angelo Russell of the Timberwolves is, he's got to have that load management. It's load management, man. Gosh, he played 3 games last week. Come on. 4 games? Gosh. So he's out tonight. It's load management. So then the backup guy, like a Rubio, imagine like Rubio comes in. He's like generally a starter, but say a backup guy, even Jordan McLaughlin or something. What if he was like over 10 from the free throw line? That's basically about how much sense some of these backup players were making yesterday. Because they can't be that much worse, can they? Imagine if Jordan McLaughlin attempted 10 free throws and made 2 of them or something. It'd be like, why? How can you be that bad? You're still an NBA player, right? Still an NBA point guard, just like some of these guys. You can't expect them to be as good as D'Angelo Russell, or say Naz Reid will be as good as Karl Anthony Towns, this and that, or with the Wild, like a Jordan Greenway is going to be as good as Kevin Fiala. It's just not going to happen, when it comes to the Wild, or we could just go on forever, backup left field or backup center fielder is not going to be Ken Griffey Jr. He's just not. That type of thing. But he's still got to be somewhat competent, right? Still a major league player or close to it, this and that. So you're hoping for better from some of your backups. And sometimes you get better. Like Eric Wilson's a good, solid, competent linebacker, even though he did not have a good game yesterday. He had good moments, but generally did not have a good game. That type of thing. Just like Todd Davis a couple of weeks ago. I was like, he had a good game, but no, it was more of good moments than a collective good game. With that said, that's pretty much everything. And unfortunately, Christmas season is over again, and it goes by way too fast, and now it's time for the overrated, overhyped, over everything New Year's Day, the most overrated holiday in the history of the planet Earth. Because the whole planet, and I mean everybody, goes absolute a-bleep over New Year's Eve. If I was the angry video game nerd, and you know how he has a bit called, what's bull bleep, or bull crap, or what's bull, yeah, you get the idea. You know what's BS? I'd be like New Year's Eve, or New Year's, New Year's. Like, why does everybody go a-bleep over New Year's? And then they couldn't care less about other holidays. Sorry, they make a small thing out of it. But they go ape-leap over New Year's. It's unbelievable. So, one thing I'll never understand. Sure, okay, yay, everything is new and you're starting over. Are you, though? You're still working at the same job. You're still living in the same place. You're still driving the same car. You still have the same computer. You still have the same clothes, the same this. What are you talking about? So maybe I'm looking at it in a negative point of view. And yes, you want to put 2020 behind you. In this case, I can understand the exception with that. But 2021's no guarantee is going to be better. Hopefully it is, and I'd prefer it to be better. Sometimes it's sad to see years like 1988 go away. 1989 was a solid year, but it wasn't as good as 88. 1988 was like my favorite year ever. 91 was a really good year. 92 was okay. 91 was a little better, I thought. 94 to 95, major drop-off. Major. 94 was awesome. 95 was... it was okay. Stuff like that. 89 to 90 was really sad to see the 80s go. 99 to 2000 was kind of like... it was an interesting day. That type of thing. It was an interesting day because of the Y2K scare that ended up being a whole lot of nothing. It was interesting. 2000 was actually a really cool year. But it actually was. But then it was like immediately after that, it was like, okay, whatever. And by 02, it was like flat out depressing and has been kind of like that ever since. 02 was a depressing Viking season also. 01 was super depressing. Even though 01 had some cool things happen that year, and one very scary, tragic thing happened that year as well. I think you all remember, most of you that are old enough. Very scary item. I can't believe that was 19 years ago. It's going to be 20 years this September coming up. Isn't that crazy? As you head into 2021, 9/11 will be 20 years ago in September. 20 years ago. Feeling old yet? Feeling old yet? I'm feeling old. I'm feeling really old. I mean, really freaking old. I'm feeling really old. When I remember guys like Phillip Rivers get drafted, and it feels like yesterday, and he's 38. Oh, my God. Okay, yeah, I'm getting old. That type of stuff. Kevin Garnett. I remember Kevin Garnett getting drafted. He's, 44? Ooh, yeah, I'm getting old. I'm getting really old. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. I mean, the pastor, my pastor at Living Word today, the son of the main pastor, Mac Hammond, there's Mac Hammond and there's Jim Hammond. I met up with him in person today for the first time in many, many years, and he was my gym teacher, basketball coach at Maranatha Christian Academy way back in the early 90s, and it's just, my goodness, going down memory lane for a couple of minutes there, and it's like, has it been that long? Yes, it has been that long. 91 was 29 years ago when I first met him, and it's like, holy crap. And it's like, he's like, how old are you now? It's like 41. And it's like, how old must he feel? Considering he was already a young adult back then in his 20s. And I'm a 41-year-old when I was only 12 back then. It's just like, it's like almost like a lifetime ago, man. It's weird. It just shows you how short it is. So that's the one interesting thing about New Year's, I guess. So maybe I'm defeating my own argument. I still think it's a little bit overrated, the way people kind of push other holidays aside and just call everything holidays. But when it's New Year, we got to say Happy New Year, and it's the most awesome thing in the history of the world. And at the end of the day, again, you go back to the same job, in the same car, the same this, same that, same apartment or same house, whatever. So it's okay to have a positive outlook, but I guess maybe I have a more of a realistic outlook. Hopefully it's a good year. Hopefully. Luckily, I've been promoted a few times at work the last couple of years, and the raises have been better than they were before. Let's just leave that where it is. Hopefully they continue to get better. And, hopefully a change of field would be nice as well. Like maybe stay in the company, but something different would be really a good thing. Because, doing the same thing for too long can drive anybody nuts. Unless you're a professional athlete. But even that can drive people nuts. Because look at Michael Jordan. He was sick of it. So he was sick of it. That's why he retired 3 times. Third time, though, he was just too damn old. Like me right now. That kind of thing. So it's a lifetime ago, man. Just seeing Jim Hammond today. Man, oh man, oh man. Some of you might know who that is. If you went to Maranatha Christian Academy years ago, or you go to Living Word Christian Center, you might know who that is. Otherwise, those of you that don't, sorry if I'm kind of going off into personal stuff that you might not be a whole lot interested in. But it is what it is. I mean, we all have stories to tell, I suppose, and you're free to tell your stories and your Viking stories, positive, negative, your hopes to the future. And I'm going to say this also. I share Mackey and Judd and Declan Goff's feelings about they want the Vikings to win the Super Bowl, especially Mackey and Judd. Like Declan Goff kind of goes with the flow, and he's a really good guy and everything. At least I think he's a good guy. Sounds like a good guy. Anyway, he's the youngest of the three. Judd's 51, Mackey's about 35, and then Declan's like mid to upper 20s, I think. He's like mid to upper 20s. He's like, something like that. And they're talking about, hey, we want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl. Enough of this rah-rah-ree, stick with the team through thick and thin, this and that. Yeah, you're still a fan, but it's okay to say, no, we don't want to just be mediocre every year and then just support the team no matter what. It's okay to criticize. It's okay to want to get the best possible draft pick. It's okay if it means the best possible draft pick is a Patrick Mahomes type of guy. I keep using him as a reference, but like an Aaron Rodgers, whoever. You need to get lucky, this and that. Yes, we need to get lucky. We need to get lucky. We need to be high in the draft. We need to get somebody great. You don't want to be the Lions. You don't want to be the Jaguars. You don't want to be the Cincinnati Bengals who haven't won a playoff game since 1988. You don't want to be like that. You want to be a team that gets over the hump. But, you also don't want to be the 2019 Vikings, who looked really good. And, we won a wild card game and got dismantled in the divisional round. You don't want to be that team either because you're sick of just making the playoffs. Maybe once in a while, wow, something cool happened. All right, something cool happened. And then you get dismantled the next week. Enough of the dismantled next week. Keep the run going. Let's go all the way and let's win it. Let's get the pieces in place that actually can do that. That's what we want so bad. And if it means a new coach, if it means a new, and it means absolutely does mean a different quarterback. And pray to God, please continue to take offensive linemen and hopefully they continue to pan out. Ezra Cleveland looks like a good pick. Brian O'Neill looks like a good pick. Again, you have to get a little bit lucky sometimes. Like Brian O'Neill, you kind of did, because he was what was he, like the 8th lineman taken that year? He ended up being damn good for the 8th lineman taken. Tackle, not just lineman, tackle taken. He was really late. He was projected later. We kind of semi-reached. Like, people knew he was talented, but they figured it was going to take forever, and it didn't take forever for him to develop. He was ready surprisingly fast. Like, by mid-season that year, it was shocking how quickly he actually developed. Faster than Ezra Cleveland. Cleveland was taken in the second round. O'Neill, also second round. The Vikings reached, though. He was probably projected to go in the third. So, a lot of things like that need to happen for the Vikings to have that major success. I'm on that bandwagon of the Mackey Judd Declan Goff, whatever, the Mackey and Judd, Declan Goff bandwagon of, no, we want to win the Super Bowl. We want to go all the way. We want the pieces. It's not okay to just be 9-7, 10-6, 11-5, and then get trounced in the division round or the wild card round. And woohoo, well, it's a good season, guys. Woohoo, see you next year. Let's go. I get tired of seeing that stuff. And those of you that have unliked the page during the past year and a half, 2 years, if that's why, well, I guess I'm not going to miss you a whole lot. I hope I didn't offend anybody. And I sure as hell hope that people don't think I'm just some kind of a homer who only bleeds purple and only kisses ass all the time, because that sure as hell isn't me. It really isn't. I am begging for a championship. I want this team to take the risks that might be needed to get there. It's time. It's time to make the big move. Obviously, you took the risk financially with Kirk Cousins, but ill preparation. You made the move, but you didn't set him up. You didn't set up Kirk Cousins properly. You put all the money into Kirk Cousins, but then, oh, crap. Oh, the offensive line. Yeah, okay, yeah, no, we'll be okay. We'll just draft a guy, hopefully. Oh, shoot, he got taken already. Like Frank Ragnow or something like that. Oh, crap, Detroit took him. Well, that's nice. Okay, well, fine. You don't want James Daniels? Okay, Mike Hughes. We need a cornerback anyway. Yeah, Kirk will be fine. He'll be fine. He's good. We're paying him all that money. He's going to be okay. Well, what the hell? Come on. Protect the quarterback. You see what I'm talking about? That's why we were 8-8, or was it 8-7-1 in 2018? That's why. And Mike Hughes can't stay healthy for his life. And he's not even that good anyway. I think he's a bust. I think he's a bust. I don't like him. The sad part is, you know what that means. But the good news is, when you draft guys like Cameron Dantzler in the third round, you don't have to take guys in the first round all the time. It proves that. And luckily, that's the one thing. Further point is that Mike Zimmer and all them can identify cornerbacks that can play that don't have to be taken in the first round. Get the quarterback and whatever guards or whatever. If you want Ezra Cleveland to stay at guard and you take another tackle, whatever it is, whatever it is, take that next left tackle or the next right guard, left guard, whatever the bleep. You need two guards one way or another. If you're going to move Cleveland to tackle, which is his natural position, you need two guards, right and left guard, ASAP, if humanly possible. Drew Samia and Brian Dozier are not the answer. Did I just call him Brian Dozier? It's just Dozier, DJ Dozier. He's not that good. Brian Dozier is a former Twin. He stinks too. He used to be good for a minute. But, Dozier's not good either. Oofda. It is what it is. So with that said, I will now wrap things up. Again, we're completely eliminated, blah, blah, blah. Hope you had a Merry Christmas. I really do. And I talked about New Year's enough. I talked about the Vikings enough. Please do send me an audio submission if you could, just like Mad Martin has several times this year, and I hope he keeps doing it. Just love it so much. Love it so much, Dave. And keep them coming, and any of you out there can do it as well. Simply use the free voice recording application on any smart device on the planet. Open it up, click record, treat it like a phone call, hit stop, save it, email it to paladinolive@yahoo.com, paladinolive@yahoo.com. I will then convert it into an MP3 file thanks to Zamzar.com, which is free because of the file's small enough. If you have a big file that needs to be converted, you can subscribe, this and that. I'm more than willing to give Zamzar a free plug because they give me a free service because the files aren't that big anyway. So thank you so much, Zamzar, for that. I mean, I'll always give you a free plug just for that one reason, because it helps my show. You help my show just by existing. Thank you so much. With that said, please give a positive rating on iTunes / Apple Podcasts if you could. Stitcher, it's available for you to do that also. I'm not sure about the other apps, but if there is a way to give a positive rating on Google Podcasts or PodMN or whatever, I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you in advance for those of you that might do that. Thank you for those of you that have. Thank you so much. God bless you. We'll talk to you in 2021, I guess.